you know, for all the accusations of racism against that the media will launch against Trump, it's like, that's all Elijah Cummings is to you. Even after 30 years on the job, that's what he is.
To being
African American, person of color. That's what he is. You picked on our black. You know, like, that's all they say. He's not a man yet. He can't just be his own man. How much privilege and power, to use terms from the left, do you need to have before you're a fair target to be criticized? Anyway, I want to play a couple of clips from our good friends, the fine folks over at CNN. And I want also to just keep in mind, because I think it's kind of important to put a little bit of context into this, that this is a week after Robert Mueller's testimony. That this is a week after what was the biggest story, according to CNN. You know, the story they talked about all day long. The president of the United States is colluded with a hostile foreign power, and he's been blackmailed by them, and this is this huge scandal, and he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life, and all of this stuff. A week after the last, breath of that body was snuffed out. A week after this story dies, a painful old man death. Just a boring, my soup is cold, old man, you'll have to speak louder, son, death. You go, how are they going to deal with this? You're talking about something for years and years, and all of a sudden it's completely wrong. How do you deal with that? So I just think that's something to kind of keep in your mind as you listen to that. But here is the first clip from CNN. They're both from CNN. So here's the first clip talking about Donald Trump's tweets about Elijah Cummings.
President attacked another member of Congress on Twitter. This time it's House Oversight Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings. He wrote this: Cummings' district is a disgusting, rat and rodent infested mess. If he spent more time in Baltimore, maybe he could help clean up this very dangerous and filthy place. No human being would want to live there. Infested. That's usually reserved for references to rodents and insects, but we've seen the president invoke infestation to criticize lawmakers before. You see a pattern here? Just 2 weeks ago, President Trump attacked 4 minority congresswomen. Why don't they go back to the totally broken and crime-infested places from which
Pause
they
it right
came?
there. Pause it right there. By the way, can you say something? Now that he's got these tweets on the screen, right? So they go, he attacked these 4 congresswomen, telling them to go back to their countries. I mean, what Donald Trump said was so interesting to see progressive Democratic congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe. And then goes on to this whole thing. Never names any of those 4 people by name. Never names them by name. Isn't there a weird... It's almost like CNN's own racism projected you assume...
I never actually read it, but it is in the singular. Democratic Congress... Oh, no, I guess not. Congresswoman.
No, it's so interesting to see progressive Democratic congresswomen.
So it's unclear. He could have, just
it's not clear.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of those 4 is from another country.
Yeah.
And then there's some other congresswoman not in the squad who's also from another country who's very progressive. I'm blanking on her name right now. But it's not actually that clear that he was talking about those 4. But whatever, doesn't matter. You decided right away he was talking about these 4 women of color. Look, man, here's the thing that people in general, like left-wing people in general, need to realize. You can have it one way or the other. Either you can want to see women and people of color in positions of power, or we can't criticize women and people of color. But it can't be both.
Right.
It can't be both. If you want to see them in positions of power, then they're fucking fair game.
Yeah,
these people, they're not victims. They're young women who are Congress people. These are not victims. In fact, these are the elite of the elite. Okay? Sorry. You get to criticize them.
Yeah. Also, just the other way would be that the untouchables can't be criticized. You know what I mean? Like that, which doesn't make sense. You want people in power who can't be criticized?
No, sorry.
That doesn't make sense.
Can't have that.
Yeah.
So pick them either way. If you want them to remain powerless, then fine, we shouldn't criticize them. I'll grant you that. But if you're going to assume the role of power, then you're fair game for me to fucking criticize. Okay, let's keep playing.
Reminder, 3 of them were born here. All of them are American. Infested, he says. A week before his inauguration, January 2017, Congressman John Lewis should spend more time on fixing and helping his district, which is in horrible shape and falling apart, not to mention crime infested. Donald Trump has tweeted more than 43,000 times. He's insulted thousands of people, many different types of people. But when he tweets about infestation, it's about black and brown people.
Can you pause for a second?
September 2014, at the height of an...
It also seems like it's always next to the word crime.
Yeah.
So
he says
in other
crime
words,
infested.
Every time
which, by the way, is not a Donald Trump original.
No.
Crime infested? And since when are we offended? He's not saying it's infested with brown and black people. He's saying it's infested with crime.
Yeah.
Are you associating crime with brown and black people? Ooh, who's really the racist here? Like, okay, that's on you, man. Now, the reality of the situation is that a lot of these high crime areas do tend to have a lot of brown and black people in them, but whatever the explanation for that is, okay, we can debate that, but that's just a fact. But okay, why are we sticking up for the feelings of criminals? Particularly violent criminals. I mean, it's not like he's talking about there's people committing insider trading or white-collar crimes or non-violent crimes. He's talking about violent criminals here, right? Who the fuck cares if you insult them? So a crime infestation? I mean, all right, that seems to be a term that he likes. Are you going to be hard on Donald Trump for that term? He only has like 6 terms. He has to use them a lot. Things are either terrific or they're fucking crime infested.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Yeah. What are you going to do? All right, let's keep playing.
An urgent health emergency. Why are we sending thousands of ill-trained soldiers into Ebola-infested areas of Africa?
All right, pause it.
Bring the plague to the U.S.? Obama is so stupid.
That's just the correct usage of the term infested. Ebola infested? Are you offended on behalf of Ebola now?
What would have been the better word there? Into Ebola affected areas?
Ebola represented areas? What are you supposed to say? It's
areas
really
currently occupied by Ebola.
I mean, he can keep saying it with this kind of like, this tone and cadence, like, my God, how profoundly wrong this is. But who is so triggered by the term crime infested or Ebola infested? But it's always brown and black areas. I'm sorry, there's not an Ebola infestation breaking out in Sweden. Oh, there might be if they keep up their immigration policy. Anyway, let's keep going.
Infested, he says. There's a revolution going on in California. So many sanctuary areas want out of this ridiculous crime-infested and breeding concept. Infested, he says. The president says about Congressman Cummings' district, that no human would want to live there. You know who did, Mr. President? I did. From the day I was brought home from the hospital to the day I left for college. And a lot of people I care about
to the
still
day
do.
I stopped living
There are
there for this
challenges,
great
no doubt.
paying job.
But people are proud of their community. I don't want to sound self-righteous,
Well, you do.
but people get up and go to work there. They care for their families there. They love their children who pledge allegiance to the flag, just like people who live in districts
They
of
breathe in
Congress who
oxygen and
support
breathe
you,
out
sir.
carbon
They are
dioxide.
Americans too.
They only
right
occasionally
back.
get raped.
All right, so all right,
We
first
just
of
watch
all,
it again. I mean, that's great. I want to watch that 4 times. Get some popcorn.
All right,
That's the funniest thing I've seen all
You have to
week.
do that on your own time, but it's pretty great. Now, I don't know exactly what my first comment on this should be.
It's hilarious. He doesn't live in Baltimore anymore. After all that, proud
Yeah,
of
why-
I would never leave.
Well, when he says, I mean, all right. Well, you know what? Forget that. Let's just start with this. How outrageously unprofessional is that? You're a fucking journalist,
That's the
man.
most professional. He's in the business of making propaganda.
Well, yeah.
And now
But
he's
I mean-
crying about what Trump's doing
But, like, you're-
with this narrative of
I'm-
racial discords.
I'm sorry. I'm just done seeing journalists cry. But at least, you know what? This is even worse than Rachel Maddow crying. Because at least when
'Cause she's
Rachel
a
Maddow
woman?
was crying, no, she's not. That's outrageous to call Rachel Maddow a woman. She is clearly non-binary. But at least she was crying about the kids being separated from their families, and feel however you feel about immigration. If you're the most hardcore border hawk, you could still see that there's something tragic about that, and you're crying over something that's actually happening, that there's real human beings suffering. You are a professional journalist, an anchor on CNN, crying over Donald Trump's mean words. Like, really? What are you, a little girl?
Loosely.
Grow the fuck up, man. Man up. Pull back your goddamn tears. What the hell are you doing? Like, can you imagine someone said something mean about your hometown, and like, oh, Jesus Christ, it's so cringy and embarrassing. Then, by the way, on top of that, and I can't help, maybe I'm a dick for saying this, but this is my own fucking thing, but there's so many people who claim, when you claim to represent a group that you actually have been given no authority to represent, you know, it's like on behalf of people from Baltimore, or okay. Yeah, you're representing the black people from Baltimore right now. I doubt you could go back to the black people from Baltimore after that performance. What do you think they would say? Anyone who ever talks about these things, have you ever hung out with black people or been in a black neighborhood? That's them. That's black people in Baltimore right there. Just very emotional. They would fucking bust your balls relentlessly for crying about what Donald Trump thinks. Those fucking black people would be like, who cares what that cracker says about our neighborhood? Like, they're so I don't know, that just bugs me. But then he's also like, you know, he's like, when Donald Trump says no people would want to live there, you know, well, this person wanted to live there. Isn't it just a perfect example of what Peter Thiel said about Donald Trump? Which, way back in 2015, I think he said this. Or maybe it was 2016, but it was when Trump's campaign. And he said, you know, Trump supporters never took Donald Trump literally, but they took him seriously. And the media never took him seriously, but they took him literally. And it is so obvious when Donald Trump says no human would ever want to live there. He's not speaking literally. He's not saying there's never been a human being who would want to live in Baltimore and in every single area in Baltimore and everybody. It's like, no, what he's saying is there are these areas in Baltimore that are fucking disasters. And, you know, it reminds me of something that Tucker Carlson wrote in his book, Ship of Fools. And I think he wrote it in the book. If he didn't write it in the book, Ship of Fools, he wrote it in some piece. But either way, it was Tucker Carlson who said this. I think it was in the book. But he said that he basically concluded that Donald Trump was not going to be able to solve any of the major issues facing America, but that he has at least inserted them into the conversation. So now we're talking about them, whereas for the most part, we're just not even talking about these things. And like, you would think, for all the talk of racism and white privilege and white supremacy and systemic this and that and all the talk of this shit, it's like, what conversations do we actually ever have? Like, on a national level, if you want to say that. I hate the term national conversation, but when is it ever inserted into the national dialogue that, you know, it's like, for all the talk of racism on college campuses or something like that, what ends up getting, you know, talked about? It's like cultural appropriation or something like that, like something meaningless. Look, here's the fucking deal with America. There are pockets of what are essentially third world countries, and most of us just avoid them. Maybe you drive through them on a road trip, or you pass by them on your way to some other destination. Are there these places? I mean, I know, like, when I'll do gigs in Philly, I've driven through Camden a few times. Here, drive through Camden. It's a different country, man. You're not in America anymore. You're in something that you'd fucking see in a movie or read about in a novel or something like that. Like, it's like fucking, dude, boarded up house after boarded up house, children unattended at 2 a.m. on the street, like people living in squalor and poverty, fucking, just the areas in Jersey, like Camden, parts of Newark, parts of Patterson. There's areas that are goddamn nightmares. Like, holy shit, you would think a fucking bomb had been dropped on this goddamn neighborhood. And by the way, Baltimore, the bad parts of Baltimore, whew, holy shit, yeah. It's not like one cop car wouldn't fucking stop there.